Welcome, everybody, to Two Waygooks in Korea. My name is Steven.
My name's Josh.
And we are both English teachers living in South Korea. And in this episode, we will talk about your first month in Korea. Last episode, we talked about the epic orientation that we went to, which was kind of before real Korea kind of began.
Before you enter the real world.
So the real scary, scary world of Korea. And in this episode, I promised the last episode, we want to talk about kind of the major points of kind of your first month in Korea, what to watch out for, what we learned that we did not know when we left to come here in the first place. We're going to start with kind of the necessities that you will be without the very first week of school.
So take in mind that me and Steven came in as teachers in the EPIC system. So our experience in the first month in Korea might be different from, say, a Hagwon teacher or just someone, working a different job. Yeah. Maybe teaching at a university or, just working in a Korean company, what have you. So take that with a grain of salt. You might be able to take a little bit, from it if you're from a different, method. But it's pretty much the same for a lot of people. So the things you're without.
All right, so the first thing, we mentioned it sort of in the last episode, but the big thing that you're going to be without, you're going to be without internet. You're probably going to be without a phone. I should say you're definitely going to be without a phone. Unless you get a temporary phone.
Like a rental phone.
A rental phone, which in the last episode we really recommended you getting because getting around, Josh did not have a phone at all for a month and a half.
About a month and a half, yeah.
And I had a rental phone and it cost me a lot of money, like maybe like $90 a month-ish. After you add up all the minutes and stuff I was talking, because you pay by the minute and the text message. But it really saved me so many times that it was really worth it.
It really was worth it. I mean, a lot of times, like we said in the last episode, I wanted to meet up with you guys. I wanted to meet up with friends to eat. And having a phone during the first few weeks really, really helps with just being alone. Right? Yeah. Because when you first come, you're going to be eating by yourself. You're going to be by yourself for such a long time when you're not at school. And you should really, settle in. You should really kind of, go out to eat, maybe meet a few people, meet some people.
Yeah.
But if you're really, really a homebody, a phone is still important.
It's like how you get all your information. How does the bus work? How do you get here? How do you do this? Because chances are you're also not going to have internet at your place.
Yeah.
Now, that's a little bit less common, depending on where you are. Some of the newer apartments that you may be placed in have internet built in.
Yep.
So you might be lucky there. Yeah. But you're not going to have internet on the go. So the internet, surprisingly, pretty important for many things.
Yeah. And I think amongst the teachers that we know, maybe only 2 or 3 of them actually had internet in their house when they had gotten there.
Yeah.
So, just be sure that you might not have internet when you get there. You might not have a clean apartment. You might not have a lot of things. So just keep in mind.
That's also a big thing. When you get to your apartment, there's no check when the last teacher leaves. That last teacher could have left your place spotless with notes telling you how to do things. Where to go buy this, some really nice ass notes.
Yeah.
Or you might get an apartment that is trashed, dirty as fuck. My last teacher did vacuum a little, but it was so stuffed with hair that I was full force yanking out long hair from the little rubbish bin, and it was disgusting. And my bathroom was flooded almost completely because the drain was completely filled with long hair. It was gross.
In my apartment, it was dirty enough where I felt like I couldn't sleep well. So
and your apartment has a big ass bug problem.
Yeah.
Which is why I never go there.
Yeah.
And why you're always here. But that's really important because when you first get here, you might have cleaning supplies. You might not have cleaning supplies. Yeah. If you don't have cleaning supplies, you got to figure out somewhere to go to get it. Maybe you can go to a convenience store next to you, or maybe you have a big place around you, but you still got to get there, know how to get back, all that stuff. And without a phone, without internet, it's hard.
So I was relatively lucky. I live across the street from Home Plus, which is like one of the Korean larger
It's like a Sam's,
stores.
sort of. Not a
Sam's Club.
It's like a super Walmart.
Maybe like a Walmart or a Target kind of ish.
Yeah, it's like half groceries, half
clothes and
stuff.
Other home appliances, whatnot.
Yeah.
So I lucked out a little bit, and I bought a whole bunch of cleaning supplies and a whole bunch of that and that, and I just
So the state of your apartment is totally random. The size of your apartment, totally random. Like, I have a pretty big place here. It's about 2 times to maybe 3 times the size of his place. Yeah. It kind of just depends where you are. If you're more in the center of the city, around more things, you have a smaller place. I live on kind of the outskirts of my city, and it's not around that much, but it's bigger. It's just kind of, how it is. Just like in any city, really.
Yeah. So it's plus and minus, right? Because once I finally got settled in, I found like 2 or 3 different convenience stores like within less than a 5-minute walk, and your convenience stores are quite
at least 15 minutes,
away,
and that's to the shitty one. Maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
To the more standard one.
Okay, so no internet, no phone. What else won't you have?
So you won't have a bank account. Just like you won't have phone service until you get something called the ARC, which is the Alien Registration Card. Yeah. Now, the very first day of school, your co-teacher should take you to apply for it. It takes like 3 to 5 weeks. I don't know, something like that.
Then you'll see all your province chingus and you're like, hey, I just saw you.
You just left and I had a mini panic, but here you are again.
Did you eat lunch yet? Yeah, I had to go to school to eat lunch at the cafeteria.
But everybody's experience with that is different. Some co-teachers are too busy to take you. Some co-teachers kind of don't even know what they're doing. And some co-teachers are awesome, and they take you. They know how to do everything.
Yeah.
So, mine was really good. We went the first day. We applied for it, saw a bunch of chingus, and, kind of went about our day. But as we said in the last episode, that first day, you wake up in the morning in orientation, you drive on the bus to your city, wherever that is, you meet your co-teacher, you meet your school, you find your apartment, and you do all that stuff in like 3-4 hours, like a blink of an eye. And so without a phone, like, I don't know what I was going to do because I panic called one of my good friends from orientation, and we were like, I don't know where I am in the city. Do you know where you are in the city? I don't know where I am in the city. Yeah. Okay, let's try to meet. You go north and I'll go south. How do I do that on the bus? How much money is it? It was just a freaking like a sideshow. But luckily it took us a while, but without phones, never would happen.
Would never happen, yeah. But my advice is once you get your ARC, get this stuff done. Really, it's going to be a lot easier to get around, to do a lot of things if you have these things in place. Internet, phone, a bank account, things like that. Yeah. Now, my co-teacher, my main co-teacher that handles me.
Yeah, everyone has a main co-teacher.
She wasn't the one to come pick me up at orientation or our meetup location, but another English teacher came, and she helped me set up the whole ARC business. And it turns out that my co-teacher has never had a guest English teacher to teach. So you might have seasoned veteran co-teachers who have done this like for 3 different teachers already, or you might have co-teachers who are like mine, who are, this is a new experience for them as well. So it's going to be a little bit of, working through a few things.
And that's a nice way of Josh saying she didn't really help too much. But I know we're not supposed to talk bad about it. But anyways, let's talk about school then, right? Yeah. So the crazy thing is that depending on your school, but most probably you are going to start work in like a day or 2 after you first get here.
Yeah.
Some people had to teach right away. Some teachers got a week or 2 or 3 weeks of kind of work time to prepare.
Yeah, you know who you are.
Yeah, you butts. So I had to teach right away. I got 1 day break to kind of prepare myself, but I had to teach the very next day. But there's so many things I did not know about how Korean classes and schools were set up. The first one being how the schedule worked.
Yeah.
So you kind of explain the...
So when you think about like kind of Western schools, you'll have like maybe 1 class of like 30 students, and you'll see those students Basically every day.
Seven
You'll teach them one
classes
subject,
a
right?
day. You see them every week.
If you're a math teacher, you'll teach the math 5 days a week, right?
Sure.
In Korea, it will be different. Depending on your school size, it'll usually be about 1,000 students, and you will teach about 600 of them, 600 to 700 of them, and you will see each class about once a week.
Once a week. Sometimes some schools do every other week.
Every other week, yeah.
But it's once a week.
Yeah.
And so you are contractually obligated, if you're with Epic, to teach 22 hours.
Yeah. As of now, I don't know if it's different for a new contract, but it's 22 hours.
So 22 class hours.
Yeah.
So that usually averages like 5 to 6 classes a day.
Yeah. They say 22 hours, but if you're in elementary school, it's 40-minute classes. If you're in middle school, 45. High school, 50 minutes classes. So it's about 22 time slots of 50-minute teaching, 45-minute teaching.
Yeah. And I screwed up the math on that one. It's usually about 4 or 5 classes a day.
Yeah.
But so that just depends. Now, that means you get some off periods, which you're supposed to be working and preparing lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But it also doesn't, you may not get 22 classes. You might get 18 classes. You might get 12 classes. I know one teacher, she
teaches maybe the school is really, really small.
Yeah.
So she teaches, a handful of classes every week.
And I know some teachers that teach 26, 28, 30 hours. Now, they're not obligated to teach it contractually. That just means you get paid overtime to do the extra hours, but you got to do it. You got to do it,
basically.
Which is fine. That's your job. If you're quote-unquote unlucky enough to have that happen to you, it's still your job. You still got to do it. I mean, some people get luckier than others, and I know that sucks.
And it varies, obviously, right? Yeah. Some of your hours will be teaching other English teachers. It's in your contract.
Yeah. Could be teaching after-school classes.
Yeah.
Which is an extra period after school, usually smaller classes.
Yeah.
That's also part of whatever.
It varies. It really, really does vary. Right. We said in our last, Epic orientation video, you have to be flexible. You really, really have to be flexible. It varies very, very, very much from school to school. Even level to level, right?
Of the 20 teachers we know, none of them are the same.
Not one.
Everybody's different.
Yeah, everyone is different.
Depending on how their classes and all that stuff.
Because the principal of their school is pretty much like the king of their own castle. The way they want to have it run is the way they have it run. Yeah. So
they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see your classes once a week, which means depending on how many grades you teach and stuff like that. So for example, I only see first grade middle school and third grade middle school. Mm-hmm. So technically, I make only 2 lessons a week.
Yeah.
Which is really lucky.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really lucky.
For the most part, that's pretty good.
Yeah, some teachers do, especially if you're an elementary school teacher, you got to teach way more grades. You got to make a lot more lesson plans.
Yeah.
Now, you see them once a week, but I think your school and my school are different. Because
quite different.
My school's students, of the ones I teach, are split between low students, medium students, and high-level students.
Yeah, they will take an English test or some proficiency test. We'll get them placed. And then there's this whole kind of weird placement, whether you want to get placed in high or not, or medium, things like that. It's kind of weird.
Well, the school handles all that.
Yeah, it's not up to you to do anything about that, as far as I know.
Yeah. But that's the best. That's what you want, because it makes the low-level student classes way less, maybe 12 to 15 students. The intermediate classes are usually the biggest ones, usually 30 to 35. And the high-level classes, mine are 30, 35.
Yeah.
But, they're technically better. So.
Yeah. And one of the hardest parts about lesson planning is, making lessons cater to your students. And when you have a really big gap in proficiency, it can get quite difficult.
Right.
For me, I teach first and second year high school students, and I actually don't have to make different lessons for them. Some of my first year students are much more proficient than my second year students. Mm. So I kind of have to do this weird lesson plan per class, sometimes per year. Mm. It really, really depends, but it really, really, really varies. It varies. Yeah.
And so the other option, of course, is that every class, they have homeroom classes in Korea, much like a lot of Asian countries.
Yeah.
And so if they're not split between low, medium, high, because the school needs to hire an extra teacher to handle that load. So not all schools can afford it. They don't have enough money.
Or have enough teachers.
Or have enough teachers to handle it, right. So then they just go by class group, which means you can have a dude who can't read, doesn't even know their ABCs in the same class with somebody that used to live in England or something.
And you can have like a conversation about, the latest BBC drama you've watched.
Yeah.
Like that will be, between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
Possible.
And we know some teachers that have to deal with that, and it's really hard sometimes. I was a math teacher back home, and there were kids in my class that couldn't even add in the same class as, can't add. Which is a big-ass deal. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal. That's a big-ass deal.
It is a pretty big deal. Right.
But,
another thing is, each class will have its own class president. Each class will have their own homeroom teacher. So if you ever get into any trouble, you can, kind of figure out class president or, homeroom teacher and speak to them if you have problems with a specific class. So that's what makes it nice when you're having a mixed class versus like a low, medium, high, because some students might not respect some teachers. Yeah. It's very rare that's the case, but it could happen.
Yeah, and so that's a good kind of first week kind of deal, or first month kind of deal, which is figure out the class presidents. Yeah. Figure out kind of how the co-teacher in charge of that class kind of handles the kids. Yeah. Because I can tell you a lot about their behavior and what to expect.
Classroom management, things like that.
Yeah, and I highly, highly recommend making some kind of system for yourself for discipline or rewards. Yeah. Because I did not do that my first semester here, and I really, really, really think my classes would have gone a lot better if I did that.
Yeah, and it takes some time to think about how you want to handle classroom management. For me, I lucked out a little bit. Most of my classes, the co-teachers already have like a class management system set in place, so I didn't want to override their authority. So whatever they're doing, to discipline the kids, that's on them. No. I'm obviously helping them because it is technically their class. So, you'll run into things like another problem is boys and girls. So boys and girls, you might be separated into boys and girls and low, medium, high. For me, there aren't enough girls in my school to do that. So we have to kind of lump the boys and girls in the same class by homeroom. And that can cause some problems.
But not really the same problems as in America, right?
No, of course not.
Yeah. Not like they'd be macking on each other the whole time and getting pregnant or anything.
No, nothing like that. Yeah. But it's just, just being more excited when there's girls around, or, being more shy when I know that they can speak English, or I know that they're confident normally and they're just shy around the opposite sex, which is possible.
Yeah, in my school, I have a girls low and I have a boys low, and I have a girls medium and a boys medium, and it kind of split like that. Except for third grade. My third grade, I do have boy and girl classes together. So I have a boy and girl high level class and a boy and girl low level class and stuff like that. And still middle school, but they don't talk to each other. They might as well not even exist in the same room together because they don't sit together. There's always a very visible divide in the middle of the room that separates the boys and girls. And, they just don't like to acknowledge that they exist. It's pretty funny, especially coming from high school back in America.
So it varies. And another thing that can vary is that your schedule can be changed at the drop of a hat. Yeah. Really, 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 really possible. In my first 2 or 3 weeks, I can't tell you how many classes were switched around, how many classes were dropped altogether, how many classes where I was just sitting, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for a class to come in. They don't come in. Yeah. And I go into their homeroom and I ask the homeroom teacher, no class today. We have some workshop that we have to do. Or only first years are on some field trip. Sometimes you get told. I'm lucky in my school, they try very hard to tell me. But sometimes you just don't know. So
yeah, there could be a whole video on Korean surprises. And that's kind of the coined term from orientation. Is the Korean surprise. And it's just that, as Josh says, anything can happen. Your schedule is more of a suggestion.
Rough guideline.
And, the school does not use email. Like, there's no school email. Like, I come from, I teach high school back in America, and the school email is like gospel. Like, you check it every day. They send out a memo. They do this. Any change, small change, you get an email almost right away.
So I have a school email. We use Cool Messenger, but get this, it's all in Korean. And
well, that too.
9 times out of 10, if you try to spend the time to decipher these, it's going to be really, really hard because the way they write is really, really special versus how they speak. Just how we speak versus how we write also. When we write, we try to sound a little bit more professional,
sure,
right? And it's just so much more difficult to understand, especially for me. Well, not especially for me, even for me, who I studied a little bit Korean before I came.
He knows a lot of Korean.
And it to this day is very, very hard.
Yeah.
So.
And my school doesn't even let me use Cool Messenger. Either they don't trust me, or they said something about they didn't have enough licenses to give out.
That sounds possible.
Which could be true.
That sounds
but it doesn't matter because I can't really cool message anybody except for my co-teachers that speak English, and they're all in the same office as me. But the main problem is, like, anything can happen. Your class could be moved. Your class could be canceled. Classes can be added. Classes can be moved up, in timetable.
Swapped.
They could be swapped. They could be, you can see some twice in a week. Like, just anything that you could think has happened to me.
And to me.
Random, like, sex ed classes will happen. Your class got canceled. Random field trips are happening that your coach didn't tell you about. And it's just that it's not their fault. Like, the teachers here work so hard. They work so hard. They have so much to kind of keep track of that just sometimes they don't tell you stuff.
It's more of like they're going to rest anyways. Like, I just don't have the time to tell them right now. You have to understand, it's not a big deal to have a class can't be canceled on you.
Yeah. Or moved. Like, that's just normal for them. And they may not have even known, like 30 minutes before they told you.
Yeah.
Right?
Your Korean teachers and your Korean co-teachers are trying their best.
Yeah.
They're trying their best. And if they're not, then I'm sorry. But I haven't really noticed that in most schools, most people that we've talked to, maybe one or two, have had a really hard time.
Sure.
But they're trying, and you should too. And the kind of thing that everyone kind of looks forward to is your first paycheck, right? So with your first paycheck, you kind of should maybe buy some food with your first paycheck. We did, for sure. And
almost everybody
did.
Made a gift, made a little gift bag, bought food, something.
And it really gets you closer with your co-teachers. Food sharing is just humongous. It's just how you get close in Korea. Share your food.
Pro tip, if you bring food, you have to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you bring food, like just from home, like a breakfast bar. Back in America, you bring a breakfast bar, you eat that stuff, it's fine. You better bring like 4 of them.
Yeah, you better bring a whole box of them.
And you better give it to everybody, and at least offer it to them. They may not always take it, but it's just, they will do that to you. Like, I've gotten so much food just because they brought fruit. They brought candy. They brought something, but they always bring enough for everybody in the office.
I will have like a cool messenger sent out. We have tangerines in the main office or something, and I won't read it or something, but my co-teacher that I share my room with, she'll all of a sudden just scurry out, come back, and just bring me food. Yeah. And I'll read later, it was from here and here and here. Yeah. And she went out of her way to walk like down 2 flights of stairs to get me like 2 tangerines. Yeah. So sharing food is a big deal. If you have food, share it.
And so, part of Epic is that they kind of tell you when you're still back wherever you're from to bring a gift for your principal, your vice principal, and stuff like that, which is fine. I actually brought some chocolate and stuff. I didn't even give it to him.
It really varies. Ask your co-teacher about that. Ask your co-teacher if it's really cool to give them gifts, because it really, really does vary school to school. I know you read a lot of forums. Should I bring a gift? Should I not bring a gift? I brought a gift for my principal, vice principal, and a handful of my co-teachers. I ended up not meeting my principal at all until maybe a month down the line.
My principal retired after a month, and we got new.
Exactly. So it varies. I mean, you might be working at more than one school, so you might have like 2 principals and 2 vice principals.
Oh yeah, that's the thing I forgot to talk about. I was going to write that down, which is that depending on where you are, If you're more in the boonies, you might go to more schools. You might have 2 schools. You might have 3 schools. And that kind of just throws it in. You're not going to know. You're not even going to know probably until you meet your co-teacher maybe.
Yeah. You might have more than one co-teacher for some reason, and you're like, why do I have more than one co-teacher? Well, you have more than one school.
Yeah. So that's also that's a surprise right there that you know. But yeah, your first paycheck, you want to make sure to buy something. We bought donuts, like Krispy Kreme original glazed donuts. They love that.
We bought maybe 100 donuts.
They love that. So do we.
We bought 100 donuts. I brought it to...
No, we brought 120 donuts.
Yeah, I brought it to an administration staff, every office that I could.
Yep.
And the whole day, like, I haven't even met these people yet, and they'll walk up to me and be like, oh, we ate the donuts really well, thank you. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, like, that's great. Who are you? And then we meet, and then they introduce themselves, and I introduce myself. But for some reason, they all know me because I mean, they all know the foreigner teacher, right? Yeah, like in your too. But like, that's how I met a bunch of my school that I've never seen before. Yeah, exactly. Food. Food's important. Food is important. The other thing that is really big is this concept of desk warming. Now, that's not a huge deal in the first month in Korea, but it does kind of depend on your school, because if they don't make you start school right away, you might have 1 or 2 or 3 weeks of desk warming, which means that's like you're sitting in your desk working on lesson plans. Yeah. Now, for the first week or 2 of school, like, you want that. You want to do some desk warming. You really need that desk warming time. You want to prepare, yeah. But desk warming also happens in the middle of your year, where you might have a whole day where you have no class, but it really happens during winter break or summer break, because the students have like 4 or 5 weeks of school off, but you don't. You only have 10 days technically off. The other kind of weeks, you're going to either be in a winter camp, which is usually about a half day, or more, depending on if your school lets you leave early. And then you just have days where you got to go to school. No one's there. No students are there. But you're contractually obligated. Yeah, a bunch of teachers aren't there. You're just contractually obligated, because you have a different contract than the Korean teachers, to go to work. Now, more and more schools are now letting people go home. Or letting teachers letting them work from home. As long as you turn in a certain amount of lesson plans by a certain amount of time. Yeah. Just to show that you are working. Yeah. And the first month that we had in Korea, we had a lot of public holidays. Now, there's a lot of holidays. Public holidays, we actually did not have to desk warm. Those are days that we are given off. I'm not sure how it's going to be. The February intake's a little bit different, because there's a lot of holidays in like September, October. Not so sure about February. Yeah. But because they don't give us a schedule really about anything. If you get a schedule, I mean, you might consider yourself lucky, but it will change. Yeah. Although the Epic did say, like, if you can, ask your school for a year-long, just public holiday schedule. Just a general schedule, not of your classes, but a general schedule of where things are. That would help a lot. Yeah, the first month I got there, I asked one of the co-teachers to kind of just give me, just the holidays that were coming up until, like, winter break. Yeah. So when I go back to school again in February, I'm going to ask her again to just tell me some dates until, the next big break. Yeah. And I advise you to do the same. If you don't get a holiday schedule, if they don't have one readily for you, it's good to know when you're not supposed to come to school, and when you're actually allowed to be at home. Because we have had a few friends who have come to school and been like, no one there. No one here. Am I supposed to be here? I don't know. But hopefully that stuff doesn't happen in your first month, but it definitely will happen to you after that. Yeah. I know we definitely did not answer everybody's questions. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So I mean, you moved to a different country. You probably don't speak the language. There's a lot of things you probably need to know. So if you have any questions right now, please leave us a comment, so we can talk about it with you. But yeah, just stay with us. We're gonna release a Waygooks, ideally, every week. It's going to be Waygook Wednesday, everybody. Waygook Wednesday. So this should be the very first Waygook Wednesday. Probably should have said it at the very beginning of this podcast. But, whoops. It's late. It's 2 a.m. That's how we do. This is really 2 a.m. Yeah. I'm hungry.
He's going to order McDonald's by delivery, which, by the way, we're probably going to talk about ordering food one day
yeah.
because we do a lot of it.
We do a lot of it.
How else do you get this? Yeah, look at this guy. There's so much. But yeah, so until next time, if you want to check out, some K-pop music video reactions, subscribe to us. If you want to listen to a K-pop video podcast, I mean, it's not video. I mean, it is a video podcast, also an audio podcast.
Okay,
it's on iTunes. I'm rambling. We out.
All right.